here and go pick it up.
All right, good morning, everyone. It is here right at 10:05 a.m. on Wednesday, April 12, 2023. I will now call this meeting of the Industrial Development Board to order, as it appears we do have a quorum. If I may just take a brief moment. Obviously, there's been some tragic events, certainly Covenant School here. And so I want to take a quick moment of silence if we could honor those victims and all those impacted by that, please. Thank you. All right, thank you all. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 2. We'll need to push that obviously to the next meeting. So we'll move to, and I'll move item number 3, the chairman's report, to the end of the meeting unless anyone has any issues with that. So that puts us to item number 4 of the agenda, which is the public comment period. We always have a public comment period in general anyway, but this is specific for Madison Station. So I guess I'll open up that public comment period now, and I would ask, is there anyone here wishing to speak in general on anything aside from Madison Station first? All right. Is there anyone here wishing to speak during this public comment period specifically about the Madison Station project? All right, seeing as though there is no one here to speak, we will close the public comment period. Moving on to item number 5, items for consideration. Amended economic impact plan for the proposed Madison Station project. Background IDB TIF process. IDB first approves an economic impact plan, which then must be approved by Metro Council. Subsequently, the developer can secure financing, which the IDB must approve. So for consideration, new information for consideration at today's meeting. Following the board's approval of the Madison Station Impact Plan on December 14th, 2022, the plan went before the Metro Council for approval, RS 2022-1902, where it was amended twice at the council meeting. The first amendment by council corrected typos to statutes referenced in sections 5A and 5B of the plan. The second amendment by council added language to section 7 to delineate the following. The maximum principal amounts of the respective bonds or notes that can be issued by the board for each of the 3 phases of the project could not exceed the amounts necessary to reimburse the developer for the estimated permitted cost of each phase. The latter change stemmed from the concern by council that without the additional language, the board could be requested to issue additional bonds or notes to pay for other costs in the event the initial bonds or notes were paid off quicker than the 30-year maximum time period provided for in the plan. Because of the amendments to the plan noted above by the Metropolitan Council, the approval process must recommence. This is required to comply with applicable law. Consequently, the board will review the amended plan at this April 12, 2023 meeting, and if approved by the IDB, the amended plan will then require approval by the Metro Council. A vote by the board is required. All right, so again, for most of us are very familiar with this project. They have, this developer and their council have been before us twice, first in October. At that time, in October 2022, we did not vote on anything. We just really got an overview of the overall project and the development. At the December meeting, we certainly did that a little bit, but spent more time focused on the economic impact plan. And so again, they're coming before us today because there are some amendments. So what I'd like to do to start off is certainly I see their counsel here, is certainly let their counsel talk in detail about the amendment specifically. And then I will certainly open it up to the board to ask any questions that they may have about the amendment. If you do have some questions about the overall project, we can certainly do that. But again, they've been before us twice already to go through that. Also, as part of our ethics training that we had back in February, and I'll bring this up again later, but I did want to disclose that my spouse is an associate principal at the architecture firm that I think the developer is still using. So again, I've discussed this with legal prior to the meeting and just want to share that with the board. As of today, there's 5 people here. I don't anticipate I will need to vote anyway, and I typically do not vote unless there's a tie. That's not a requirement. That's a personal decision on my end. But again, just want to disclose that to the board.
Before you begin, I also need to disclose a conflict, so I won't be voting either.
All right, that sounds good.
So I don't have a lot more to say than what the chair described in the summary, in that the plan in substance has not changed. When we went through the council, the initial amendment, we realized that there were some typographical errors that we needed to correct, so we did in the First Amendment. And then as the chair explained, there was some question and concern that because we had estimated the TIF over a longer period of time than we really think we're gonna need to get it paid for, and the total amount of the available increment could be used if needed, because if the increment didn't materialize as fast as we needed, and I think we explained this at the last meeting, this would let us have an opportunity to get paid back over time. There was a concern that, well, if you get paid back early, can you go and do another deal? And we said, no, but we'll be happy to put language in there. It makes it clear that that's not our intent. We're not trying to game the system and find a way to find additional money to pay for other things. This was just an opportunity to basically try to provide a safe harbor so that you wouldn't get in a situation where you didn't have enough TIF availability to pay off the loan. I know there's been news stories about that being a problem in another deal, and we had tried to make sure that that couldn't happen here. And I mean, that is the case. I mean, the numbers that are in the economic impact plan for the maximum contribution, those are the maximum numbers we can get, and the total amount of TIF that we can get is set out in the plan. And if there's not enough money over the time period, over the 30-year time period to get paid back, then the developer just doesn't get paid back.
So in other words, no recourse to the board.
No recourse to the board, clear no recourse to the board. And we made that clear, I think, in our last meeting. It's clear in the documents, so I don't think there's any issue there. That was not an issue that came up with the council. The council really was worried about the fact that because we had anticipated that the increment might not materialize as fast as we wanted, and it might have to be paid back over, that we might need to get paid back over a longer period of time. They just wanted to make sure that if in fact it materialized quicker than we wanted, that we couldn't get additional funding for things that exceeded the maximum amount. So yeah, that's all that's going on here. So the plan is the same. It's still a 3-phase process. We're still gonna bring back to you project agreements, and we've submitted a draft for your legal counsel to review. They've asked us to defer that so that we can spend more time working with them on that. We were happy to do that, since this has got to go back to the council anyway to get approved. And again, that's just because the way the statute is written, it says the IDB has to act first, and there's no process in the statute to accept amendments after you've approved them. We've actually looked at trying to change the legislation, but we're not going to be able to do that this year. We might fix that next year. So this
Still on the IDB first.
still on the IDB.
Okay, sounds good.
So that's all we've got, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation. Let me go to our legal counsel as well. Josh, in your legal opinion, economic impact plan, any thoughts? Is it approved from your standpoint from a legal perspective?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, Jim explained it pretty well. I mean, essentially, there were some grammatical things that needed to be fixed, and obviously to reflect the change that council made. But you guys have apparently approved this before when I was not on the board. Or
That's right.
Representing.
You're on hiatus from us.
On hiatus, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty perfunctory, I would almost say. So no issues here, and I think you guys are okay to approve it if you're so inclined.
All right, appreciate that appreciate your perspective on that. I'll start here to my left.
I think it's great. Thank you for those endorsements.
Any questions or comments here?
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
All right, start here. Vice Chair,
I
any
just have-
questions or comments?
Sorry, we had a late
to
school
the
start
amendment?
this morning, so I was like running in after hookup. And you probably already covered this, but do we not have to also have another public hearing on it?
You missed that.
I missed it here. Okay, thank you.
The chair had the public
Had the
hearing
hearing,
at the
okay.
beginning of the
Yeah.
meeting.
All
Yes,
right,
and
I
and
just-
made it clear,
You're fine. Wasn't sure.
he made it clear that he solicited comments about this project as,
Okay.
from the public, and no one spoke.
Sorry.
So you didn't
Sorry.
miss any substance from missing the public hearing.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for making sure we're following. Thank you, Vice Chair.
I always like it when the board makes sure we do it right.
That's right. I used to say we have some great rule followers, which is good. That's very important. All right, with that said, certainly entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
All right, so we have a motion from Board Member Wright and second from Board Member Davis. All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and any abstentions? Let the record show 2 abstentions, Chair and Board Member Haston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your time. All right, let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is the civil rights title policy. That was not dropped in until late yesterday, but Josh, do you want to discuss this?
Or actually, I may defer to.
Sure,
To
no
Latonya.
problem. So essentially, the state of Tennessee's Economic and Community Development has a report that the IDB is requested to do annually, and one of the questions was whether or not we had a written Title VI policy, which prohibits discrimination in program delivery. Checked with Josh, and you did not. Nigel also had to go through a pretty elaborate and intensive test on Title VI, that he and I, made sure he had all the materials, and he finished the test with 100% completion. And,
On a Friday afternoon, it was
Friday
beautiful
afternoon.
outside. We were probably having a great time, but we had a good time learning about title policy. On behalf of the board,
He got an A+ on his Title VI civil rights policy. So essentially,
it's a Hemfog education.
yes. So essentially, after talking with Josh, we thought it would probably be best to just simply adopt the Title VI civil rights policy that Metro Davidson County has. So essentially, what you have before you is what Metro Nashville's policy is on the front, and then on the back, it should be just a proposed policy for your board.
Yep, thank you for that, Latonya. Josh, as board members are kind of taking a look at that, anything else from your end, from a legal perspective, to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think for most of what you guys do as a board, particularly in the documents that we execute, it already has language in there that basically follows Title VI, but I think it is good for the board to adopt a formal policy. And as Latonya mentioned, apparently the state now is requiring, I think it's annual compliance with Title VI, so I think going this direction is definitely recommended for you guys.
All right, any questions for either Josh or Latonya on that policy? Josh, just from a legal perspective, and Latonya, feel free to chime in. Certainly, if necessary, if the board wanted to defer this from a legal perspective, is there any major issue with deferring this to the next meeting? If the board wanted to?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you for that. Any questions regarding this policy from anyone? Start here again to my left.
Everything's good.
So it's just we're just adopting like our own kind of non-discrimination
Correct.
policy.
Because we're required to.
Cool,
Yep.
yeah, that sounds good.
Any other questions, Board Member Davis? Anybody here to my right?
Everything looks good.
Vice Chair? Okay. All right.
Move approval.
All right, so we have a motion here to approve by Board Member Davis. Thank you. Board Member Allen, any discussion? I'm sorry, Board Member Oakley, excuse me. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let the record show 1 abstention, please, from the chair. All right, we will move to the third section, Chairman's Report. I'll be brief today. For the most part, during the Chairman's Report today, Josh, just as an update, I'll turn it over to you regarding the ethics training that we had at our February meeting, and just anybody you need to follow up with on that.
Yeah, I apologize, I can't remember who was not here for that February training, but during the training, I mentioned that state law actually requires that all IDB board members complete a conflict of interest statement, which basically just says that if you have a direct interest that is a conflict, that you have to disclose that and actually recuse yourself from voting, and then if you have an indirect interest, you need to disclose that on the record, but you're not necessarily prohibited from taking a part in voting on whatever's before the board. So for those folks who were not here, and I think it may just be you, Josh, I think everyone else may have been here. Were you here?
I signed the form.
Okay, awesome, then yes.
I think there's 3 people that need to sign. Were you here?
I wasn't here, we
Yeah,
didn't have
so-
one last meeting in the end, so.
Yeah, so I think there's 3 people.
So what I do have, I have a copy of the form that I need for you to sign. There's also a statute that basically explains what a direct and indirect interest is, and I'll give you a copy of that. So before you leave today, if you can just review that, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, but if I can just get your John Hancock on there before you leave, that would be much appreciated.
All right, outstanding. And then just quick update on my end, not for sure yet, but I asked I talked with the Metro team and requested, hopefully at our next, just so the board is aware of kind of things on the horizon, potentially the project agreement for Madison Station will be coming up at our next meeting, and then potentially the Metro incentive grants. I'll be following up with the Metro team on that, but I requested that we get back to doing those in the springtime. And this is the annual incentive approvals for the cash grants. For those of you that recall, last year we did it pretty late in the year, just due to timing, but I'm just trying to get back on schedule and get that done in the spring. So those are 2 potential items that would be coming up on the horizon. So just want to let you know.
Nigel, if I could, at some point in the next meeting or the meeting after, whenever it works, have been doing some research into the Bellevue TIF default and would like to just update the board on sort of what happened there and give a little bit of information on why that happened, because I think it would be helpful when we do TIFs in the future to know.
Sure, if that's something you all like to do, that might be good timing, especially if the project agreement comes up in the main meeting. So we'll maybe try to align that with the project agreement, whatever date that would come before the board. So, sounds good. Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments, concerns? All right, with there being no further business, I certainly want to always thank you, board members, for volunteering your time and coming to today's meeting. I want to thank the Metro staff, thank all of our guests, and really appreciate everyone's time. So with that said, it is right at 10:23. I will move for meeting adjournment. Thank you all. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy the spring weather.